towards performance and like player versus player, lane versus lane. Like Jinnu, he's also a carry-oriented top laner. He should be able to compete with Let Me. Amy, with MLXG's current form, should be fine. Cool can definitely take on Xiaohu. Both of them are having super hot careers right now. Imp, possibly one of the best AD carries to ever play the game versus the newcomer, and then PYL, one of the oldest supports. So like pound for pound in talent, LG I think actually outclass RNG here, and it's now a matter of can RNG's 5v5 and macro strategy beat LGD?
We'll certainly find out in this best of 3. Raz, thank you so much for your insight in this. We've gotten now into picks and bans for game number 1 between RNG and LGD. Already you can see some very intelligent bans coming out of both sides, as Thresh and Fiora taken away from PYL, Jinnu, Lee Sin to follow it up. And immediately, LGD, no hesitation, get rid of the OPs. Zac and Galio taken away, along with the targeted ban towards Ming's Zyra. That means Y4 is going to be prioritized very early on with a nice, safe AD carry, that Caitlyn.
And naturally, it's also a denial pick away from Imp. We know that that's one of his signature and favorite champions. That said, he's been moving more towards the Kalista hype train this time around. We'll see if he's as confident to do that going into a Caitlyn lane, because it certainly changes the dynamic of how that 2v2 goes.
And now, looks like we've got Braum locked in right away for PYL. Still a lot of strong picks. He has been prioritizing, Imp has been prioritizing that Kalista lately, but there is flexibility here.
I actually think with the Braum being picked out, because Lulu and Karma are still available, that the Braum gives away the fact that he's going to go towards that Kalista. The only other thing that I can think about is maybe a Kog'Maw or a Jinx impossibility. I know that Jinx has a decent matchup into Caitlyn. She's one of the few AD carries that can stand across from her, but the reason why I lean more towards Braum is just as how his synergy works with Kalista for those all-in engagements.
MLXG taking Elise in the jungle, going to be dropping webs on people and trying to wrap up the competition. Now we get a chance to see how RNG will flex out around this.
And thank God MLXG returned to the Elise. I didn't want to see any more of those passive junglers. I didn't want to see the Ivern. I want to see him return to his bloodthirsty ways and be that carry mechanic that he can be for his team.
I mean, we did see him on a bloodthirsty champion just a few days ago when he played Rengar, but he did not play it in a very bloodthirsty style at all.
Well, the difference is that Rengar is really dependent on his team to set him up for success, whereas Elise gets to do that the other way around.
Set up success for the team.
Thank you. I was really paying attention to this Jarvan pick. I was like, for some reason,
yeah.
I couldn't identify what champion it was.
But now it looks like we do have the 2 arena champions once again. Jarvan and Camille locked in. No hesitation from Jinnu to pick that up.
And this has been a really interesting skill-based matchup. So we've seen it a couple times in the LPL, and it actually has gone the Jarvan's way, just because he'll use his Cataclysm to dodge out her sustain, and then land on top of her and look for the all-in engagement. But it's a pretty volatile matchup that I feel like can still go either way, and naturally Jinnu thinks that he can get an edge here.
Yeah, we're still seeing LGD hold on to their AD carry and mid laner for Imp and Cool. With that Syndra ban away to Xiaohu, that means we've got a Kalista follow-up, so targeting Imp's pool more so than Cool's here. And we'll see how they decide to round this out on the follow-through.
Yeah, so RNG had the same idea that I did about LGD with their Braum showing. We'll see if they continue to kind of double down on that and pinch Imp further, or possibly squeeze this mid lane pool that Syndra and Orianna have been taken away from.
It'll be exciting to see how Cool continues to mesh with the new team, because he saw a lot of success just 2 days ago. Can he continue it here today? And as you said, sort of prioritizing that bottom lane. Do you try to limit Imp, the Season 4 World Champion, as the newcomer Y4?
Well, it looks like they are going to.
Yeah. Sivir is going to be the follow-up ban.
And I actually kind of want to flag this a bit. So LGD banned Syndra from red side, and then they picked Camille in kind of last rotation. And I feel like they had an opportunity where they could have put Cool on the Syndra. Instead, they are going to go with the Kassadin. And my only issue is you need to have really strong wave clear somewhere on your composition if you're going to do that, and right now they don't.
Perhaps Jinx might actually be the go-to if she's able to get the switcheroo rockets from Fishbones. Oh, I'm looking at the hover. I saw the Lucian. I would have been very surprised to take that, but it is Zed locked in for Xiaohu. into Cool's Kassadin, 2 melee range assassins.
That can be incredibly volatile and snowbally, not only in the mid lane, but also out into those side lanes. Naturally opens up a 1-3-1 possibility for both teams, so we'll be sure to keep a close eye on lane assignments and who gets the scales tipped in their favor.
Still no support yet from RNG, so we're going to see that rounded out right here. Again, it's Ming pairing up with Y4, the new AD carry. And Tristana?
I mean, it certainly fits in Imp's wheelhouse.
There he goes. Back to the classic. If it ain't broke, rat-a-tat-tat it.
I was so excited for a possible Jinx. I know that Imp likes to play that one.
But as it is, that rounds out our compositions. LGD, again, trying to go for something a little wacky with their compositions. They've always preferred sticking to champions that they prefer more comfortably than things that are more meta standard. But RNG on this side, they've got a lot of strong champions that we're hoping they're fairly comfortable on as well.
There's a lot of pick potential and a lot of assassination potential on LGD's comp. If any of those 3 carry champions get ahead, the Twitch, the Kassadin, and Camille, you almost can't be overextended in any lane or any situation as RNG. The Twitch pops up, he's got the Blade of the Rune King, Kassadin walks you down, Camille will always be a breaking point sometime late game where she just overwhelms anyone. On the other side, it's a very typical kind of, I'm going to call it a 1-4 composition. Yes, if Jarvan gets ahead, they can do the 1-3-1 with the Zed, but they're a much stronger unit by creating that solid front line or line of scrimmage with Caitlyn.
And that puts a lot of pressure onto Xiaohu to get ahead of Cool on that Kassadin, because if Zed is locked down by Kassadin, he can't take that 1v1. That creates a really tough split push.
My only concern for RNG's comp is that they don't really have any sort of magic damage. They only have the Elise, but otherwise it's Caitlyn, J4, and Zed. Typically, with a composition like this, you would have, the Rumble up into the top lane.
Well, I decided to very early commit to the Jarvan, so perhaps trusting the OPs of patch 7.10 or their own comfort on those champions, whereas LGD trying to stick with what works. Question is, which side is the momentum going to go towards? Are LGD actually setting sail from the hype station, or are they just going to sit back at the gates and wait for a little bit longer?
Or are LGD's laners just naturally stronger than RNG's right now? We have a lot of questions for Y4. He did get the priority pick of Caitlyn. Yes, it's a denial across from Imp, but naturally trying to give him or get him off on the right foot.
Yeah. It's much easier to be safe on Caitlyn than it is on the likes of that high APM like Kalista or something else. And again, it's still also just a very strong champion. But with that, we've now loaded on to the Rift for game number 1 between RNG and LGD.
A lot of pings coming out and a nice little view of the Rift. I'm not quite sure how I feel about the 360 no scope going for us.
On the Rift?
It's very disorienting.
Yeah, lots of spinning. RNG fans making their pride known as Dorian shields picked up all across the board, 5 in total. And taking a look at masteries, things look standard as well. Bond of Stone for both supports.
Something might be a little bit off when you have 5 of them in one game.
Yeah.
That said, we've talked at length about kind of the Doran Shield meta, how it empowers not only the melee supports to come back, but pretty much any sort of champion that doesn't do well in lane phase now gets a free pass. Caitlyn is one of the few champions that gets the option, do I want the Doran's Blade? Do I want the Doran Shield? This time around did pick up that Doran's Blade, so we'll see if Y4 is able to punish. You'd think with 2 pots and Doran Shields, Imp's going to stay in lane no matter what.
Yeah. Now, blue buff is going to be the start for both of the junglers, MLXG and Amy on opposite sides of the map. To think about it, these two teams last split were on exact opposite ends of the spectrum. RNG was at the top, second place, fighting for first with WE, and LGD pretty comfortably dead last.
And now the gap feels like it's closed, but RNG certainly have the opportunity here to prove me wrong and open the gap right back up.
Once again.
That would certainly hurt.
Reset the status quo.
I do like it when junglers start opposite sides, just because I feel like, especially when the information is given, because it opens up this opportunity where you know that the other jungler is going to be on the other side of the map, so you can just look for the gank as opposed to being worried about the counter gank. Normally junglers don't take the opportunity, but with someone as high gank pressure like Elise, there is that possibility.
Already, we can see MLXG heading towards the top side. He blast plants over the wall, but Jinnu His jungler senses are tingling, pushes the wave in, and immediately backs away. And actually a retreat ping out of RNG. Perhaps they think he warded it?
That was a great heads-up play by Jinu. MLXG now will be spotted out by Amy, so Jinu is actually rewarded for his spidey senses there.
Now we do get a chance to see him return towards that side of the map. MLXG actually invading onto Amy. He's got Smite and gives it the on my way ping. He's bringing Xiaohu up there as well, so Amy's forced to back away. And with Jinu, now that wave's so far forward, it's going to be difficult to invade into his own jungle nice and safely. Xiaohu's wasting a lot of time here. Cocoon actually will tag Amy. They turn back onto the red buff to finish it off. Successful invade from RNG.
Seems to be a bit of miscommunication there between Cool and Amy. Amy was spending a lot of time that he really shouldn't have been. That red buff clearly wasn't going to go to him because Kassadin disengaged off of it. Although, hold on.
We see MLXG just casually walking through mid lane.
The stroll.
Yeah, he's so far forward, but he has so much confidence that nothing's going to happen.
So already we're seeing a very different look and vibe from MLXG than the previous series. You know, he kind of got bullied around, he was invaded a lot, just kind of disappeared back into his jungle. You know, the old Homer Simpson meme, disappears into the bushes. This time around, much more offensive, looking for the early invades, contesting the red, and trying to get things going for his team already.
Secures Scuttle Crab on the bottom side before heading back into his own jungle. Recall from Amy after clearing out Krugs. Means that he's going to be just slightly up in CS, but MLXG with the experience advantage from stealing away that larger camp and now finishing off his own Raptors on the other side of the map. So the junglers get a chance to reset. Even the top laners, Let Me, picks up 2 long swords before heading back, holds on to his teleport as well, so perhaps could be expecting something to happen, maybe just doesn't want to give that flexibility to LGD. And in the bottom lane, as expected, Twitch having a real tough time against Caitlyn.
Well, what it allows Let Me to do by retaining his teleport is not necessarily open up a potential play bottom this early on in the game, but it allows him to be hyper-aggressive in his lane and kind of play with 4 pots instead of just 2. He knows that he can burn those 2 in really aggressive trades to try to deny CS since he has the back advantage. And then even if he trades his pots being overly aggressive, he's got the TP that he can match Camille and come back into the lane even stronger.
An attempt to open up that advantage in the lane. Jinu with now a slight CS advantage and experience advantage. Has a small window with which to play, but it is getting smaller and smaller as that wave gets closer and closer to Let Me. He's now caught it. And taking a look at the mid lane, Cool continuing to trade with Xiaohu. The expected Zed versus Kassadin trade patterns, just so tough. Though Cool does have a Doran's shield, so luckily he gets a chance to get at least a little bit of health back.
I know you're a big Zed player, Dom.
Yep.
How does it feel facing across from Kassadin?
Oh, it's great. Until level 6. And then it's less great.
I feel like that's every lane with Kassadin.
Yeah.
And then the Rift Walk came, and I was suddenly not having fun.
He's not going to do anything for 6 minutes. Oh, God, he's doing so much.
Here we go. This is a trap. Along came a spider.
Boy. MLXG walks forward, gets a ward. Amy, so patient.
Just making eyes.
Yeah. He's thinking about it. Cool is level 6, but has no mana, so I'm sure the communication came across. Can we collapse? Can we do something?
Sit still.
Yeah. But that's more than you would have gotten from Godv. If Amy said, hey, is there Elise here? Can we do something? Godv would have just, I'm going to dive mid. I'm diving mid. Gank.
And the important thing is that Amy has shadowed around Imlik. She knows exactly where he was, did see the trail ends of the orb being procced, so they know that he went back into his own jungle, and it helps give safety for Jinu, who's very far forward, extended into that lane.
Try to get that Camille ahead. Now we're seeing Let Me getting a huge advantage over Jinu now. 2 full CS waves as he's held that under his turret for such a long time. Great play from Let Me to hold that there. As Imp and QAL still trading down with Y4 and MLXG, or Ming, excuse me. I haven't had a chance to check down here for too long.
But quickly jumping back towards the top lane, there's now an opportunity, if Let Me can force that way forward, where Jinu can either walk back to the lane or use his teleport. And again, we were talking about that slight advantage that keeping the teleport this early on in the game can give you, and there it goes.
Jinu teleports top. He's now picked up a Sheen for himself, but Let Me still holds on to his.
But look at the CS discrepancy. This is what I was talking about. You get to play so aggressive when you have that TP, because it's basically extra health in the bank.
Yeah. And look at this, he's still even holding on to it. Now Ninja tabbing to deal with the Sheen of Jinu, and despite Jinu having an experience advantage, It's just the stat trading.
Walking back up. And it seems so small, just kind of how he's controlled and manipulated his wave, but it's opened up a pretty massive advantage between these two top laners. That said, never discount the Sheen. That damage can be disgusting.
The empowered Q proc is just so strong. Meanwhile, Cool did use his teleport to get back into mid lane as again, Amy doing an excellent job of shadowing MLXG, keeping his mid lane safe, keeping his top lane safe, preventing any sort of dive from the threat, or dive threat from an Elise. Cool did use his teleport to make his way back into lane. He's got his catalyst and a refillable, so he will be happily scaling for the next few minutes.
Which means that Amy's pretty much doing exactly what he needs to do. Yeah, Jinu's losing out on some CS. The lanes are falling down here and there. You look at Amp, who's getting bullied by the Caitlyn. But ultimately, if he's just making sure that RNG's kind of early game weapons don't get snowballed, eventually Twitch and Kassadin will take this game over.
All they have to do is wait and trust in the carries. Can you put your faith in Imp, Frosco?
100%. You are asking the wrong person if you wanted a different answer.
Don't quite know what I should have expected, but you can already see that turret is taking a lot of punishment. I guess the question then becomes, can RNG break this game open before Kassadin becomes big, before Imp in the hands of Imp can become bigger?
Well, as we're closer to the 9 minutes, there is the option to do that, especially with the top lane control. Again, Let Me has his teleport. Jinu's about halfway there for his, so theoretically, yes, it is possible, but that's really dependent on A, MLXG being in the right position, and also Xiaohu. Now that Cool is level 8, it's much easier for him to compete with Zed's wave clear and his pushing power, because Xiaohu needs to get control of this and then start disappearing into Fog of War.
Speaking of disappearing into Fog of War, Imp gives a nice welcome to Y4, tags is slow, but immediately Ming shows up to protect his AD carry, and the supports just back away, content with their trade.
Yeah, and they didn't have vision on MLXG, so you saw the caution there. If they'd known that it was a 2v2, they probably wouldn't have been as afraid, but they suspected that Kinch was coming in with the Elise.
Now, MLXG manages to sneak his way into top lane. This is a big wave, and he hasn't been spotted. The Cocoon does tag Jinu, and flash, and he hook shots away out of the Cataclysm. Auto attack from Let Me. He's almost certainly going to catch up, tries to lock him in, buys enough time for Amy. First blood, but top laners are traded, and MLXG flashes away.
I mean, that's best case scenario for Jinu right there. Great mechanical misstep, and just kind of a miracle play, really. The Hail Mary that he gets such a long hook shot onto the wall, then using his ultimate to buy him more time for Amy to respond. But that's the key thing. Amy responded. If this is 2016 LGD, Jungler would have been on the opposite side of the map, and that would have gone unpunished.
Absolutely. Despite that, though, it's still a 1,400 gold lead as we get to the 10-minute mark, and slowly but surely getting more dangerous. Xiaohu did just use his Shadow. That's the dangerous thing about this matchup now. The Shadow at level 1 has such a high base cooldown that if you use it to harass, you are so vulnerable.
I mean, he has a lot of safety to do it in this situation, simply because he knew both junglers were top lane. As we take another look at this gank, that is...
Wow.
That is the longest range E I think I've ever seen.
Slides on by. I think he expected to die to the minions there. So, or maybe he was just trusting an Amy.
Forced out 2 flashes.
Yeah, he did. But that is 2 flashes traded for 2 as Imp sneaks forward. And again, with this slight gold advantage, RNG are trying to break the game open, trying to break open a turret. They're just having a little bit of trouble.
It will mean that Amy has to give some sort of attention to this lane, otherwise they're just going to passively continue to lose it, which is why we start to see Amy rotating down bottom.
Ooh, yeah, that's the range of Caitlyn there. Just headshot after headshot, managing to tab Imp through PYL there. And now that red buff is picked up on MLXG, he's showing up bottom.
And this is the smart play. MLXG, knowing that Amy could rotate down there, just joins them. He's just going to walk up. They're going to push down this tower and possibly rotate into a free dragon.
That Ocean Dragon could be very important for this team later on as Y4 looks to get solo gold.
Interesting desperation play top.
Ooh, he actually manages to tag him through the Dragon Standard. Cool shows up in time. And Let Me, without a flash, doesn't stand too much of a chance. Even the sweep and a Cataclysm, they gift the kill over to Jinu, so it's Dragon traded over. Dragon and a turret traded over for a kill.
I mean, it's a suboptimal play because you are losing 2 objectives for just the kill gold. We'll see if they continue to push through. No, Jinu making his back. But it's even more suboptimal as a response from LGD simply because Kassadin didn't pick up the kill gold.
Just slowing down that Kassadin even more. He's still keeping pace with Xiaohu in terms of CS, and he does now have a Seeker's Arm Guard for safety, but that is going to delay his scaling even more, though he is safe in lane to continue sitting and waiting. The question is, how long? How much time does he have?
Exactly. We have a mechanic like Rift Herald in the game right now, which means that Kassadin is exceptionally punished because he doesn't have built-in wave clear. You only have a Twitch, he doesn't have a Hurricane. Like, you're reliant entirely on Gragas if RNG decided to use their unlock Caitlyn to pick up the Rift Herald or just siege naturally. LGD, if they're not careful, they're going to start losing all of their structures, and that's what RNG should be looking to do at this point.
Yeah, they've already swapped Caitlyn and Ming up towards that top lane, looking for the top tier 1. They're going to be spotted now. LGD just a little bit slow to the draw, are now sending Imp and PYL, but Y4 is already on the turret and MLXG is waiting to flank.
But this is do or die for LGD. They need to make a fight, and they need to make it count here. This is how they get back in. RNG should know this and either prepare for it or disengage.
Yeah, Imp leads the way. He's got to be careful getting close to that wall because MLXG is nearby. Cool is spotted and just takes a bit of harass from Xiaohu, who will help his team punish this top tier 1 turret. Jinu's trying to hold on to bottom against Let Me. There's teleport available for both. That's going to be the Dragon standard. Quick leg sweep along with precision protocol to get himself back, but this turret is slowly but surely being willed down.
Again, just passively losing the game. Look at the item difference between Y4 and Imp. Imp still just has the variety bucket, pieces of his Blade of the Ruined King. Meanwhile, a completed Infinity Edge for Y4. RNG understand that they're stronger, and they're looking to punish and exploit.
Cool now holding on mid lane, keeping Xiaohu occupied, gets a lot of damage. Deathmark and Ignite. Xiaohu misses the follow-up Shuriken. He's able to get a lot traded back as, oh, he's got Let Me there with him. That's a greedy recall, Cool. He's got Flash, but tries to Rift Walk and then flashes to the side. Now Let Me is going to be punished as it is traded back and forth on both sides.
Deep teleport from Camille. Let Me might not be out of it.
Yeah, Jinu's looking for this, but here comes Y4 and Ming. The rest of RNG collapse. Knock-up. Cask is going to separate Ming, who's the target, as the knock-up misses. And Ming in the front, sidesteps, keeps himself safe. Despite all of the harass and the range, finally they're dissuaded. Amazingly, no one died.
Cool, good sidestep to avoid Let Me, doesn't make the correct prediction, but LGD's health bars are hemorrhaging, and Y4 is in perfect position to get some chip damage on this mid tower, possibly take it. No, he's just gonna back up.
Yeah, no teleport left for anyone from LGD. Decides to take it safe, not having any vision of Imp or Cool either. So the turret is defended, and very aggressive play from RNG turns out to work in their favor as they now open the map. Take a look at those wards on the top side. It's 16 minutes in. That is way too many wards for 16 minutes.
This is what we expected from RNG, though. MLXG, I mean, you took the ward stats for this team, Dom.
Yeah, it's huge.
You saw that MLXG and Xiaohu were actually bigger in placing wards than majority of the other jungle and mid counterparts to other teams relative in the LPL.
Yep. The only jungler who had higher ward stats than MLXG, hilariously, was Bebe, because he played on RNG when he was playing with Uzi and Xiaohu as well.
And the only time you get ward numbers like that, it's indicative that you're a heavy skirmish roaming style of team, because you're constantly moving around and placing your flanking vision as you do so. So it's indicative that you're picking a lot of fights often.
Something that RNG might try to continue using here, as Zeal has now been finished off for Y4. Imp still hasn't recalled, still sitting on just the Bilgewater Cutlass and that recurve bow. And that is not enough to go toe-to-toe with Y4 right now, though he is even inexperienced. Gunblade now picked up for Cool, the revolver, not even the Gunblade just yet. And LGD, they are trying so hard to scale, but they are running out of time.
Yeah, just in between so many different item breakpoints. As long as RNG continue to understand that onus is on them to speed up this game by looking for aggressive plays like that, they'll have no problem closing this out.
Yeah, they decide to take the Voyage and try to get a pick onto Jinu, force out his flash, but they also get Cool's teleport as well. There's no answer for Xiaohu on the other side of the map.
Yeah, the no teleport, they'd have to back. You can see that Kassadin's doing that right now to walk back up. And slowly but surely, we're just losing small increments across the map.
Y4 still keeping Imp locked down in this mid lane by shoving wave after wave, and now you've got xiaohu collapsing on the mid lane as well, along with Let Me. This turret is not long for the rift. And though it is a valiant defense from LGD, the final tier 1 falls, even the Youmu's as well, and immediately Ming eats him up and carries him away as LGD feint a collapse, but it's just not enough. RNG are running away with this early game.
This is a very aggressive rotation from RNG, though, to try to capitalize further on this bottom creep wave. You have to think how much global gold they're sitting on, and again, the fact is that LGD are getting their backs. You're starting to see that core itemization come out. That's actually a super soaker completed for Kassadin, as well as the Blade of the Rune King, so LGD are finally strong at this point. I think RNG, you're pushing your luck if you try to extend for this run.
Yeah, they decide to back away as Imp shows himself. They now see Cool in the mid lane, as you said, with that GLP 800. That is, in fact, the name.
I like Super Soaker.
It's pretty good.
The frozen hose.
Ice
A gardening hose,
yeah, no,
Dom.
I get it.
A gardening hose.
I was going for the Mr. Freeze pun.
Oh, I see.
He's Ice Fumichu.
What killed the dinosaurs?
I did.
It's the Ice Age. Oh my god.
He says I did, because he's the Ice Age. Did you not see Batman Forever?
I have a Batman tattooed sleeve. Yes. And the quote
man.
is the Ice Age. You've offended me so many times tonight. You thought Tifa Lockhart had blonde hair. You misquote my movies.
Have you ever considered that it might be deliberate?
Just slap me across the face next time. You'll do less damage.
The emotional tilt. The emotional damage is the worst. And seems like LGD are on my side as well. Trying to upset you even more by not quite following through in this game. 20 minutes in, they find themselves at a 4, now almost 5,000 gold disadvantage.
And it's frankly because RNG have just been playing a very clinical and very clean game. It's been a joy to watch. That said, RNG had a very similar trend. Hold on, though.
That's embarrassing. You gotta land those if you want to do damage. There's a delayed death mark, but xiaohu's got really low energy. Here's the collapse from the rest of RNG, but that's a Kassadin.
He's out. He's not out.
xiaohu's still going for this. This is really greedy. He actually does land that shuriken. He's got flash and ignite, but meanwhile.
And back to my main point.
Yeah.
RNG were in this exact
Where did
same
Herald go?
position. Died.
Yeah. I was like, it's 20 minutes.
Position across from Team WE in the finals. You know, they had leads all 3 of those games, and they still fell down and lost because they were indecisive with their leads. So this is now what we need to pay attention to for RNG. They've had the lead, they have the momentum. How do they capitalize and close on it?
Well, the aggression was tossed at Cool, and he was able to hold it together. You know who wouldn't have held it together? Godv.
Stop throwing shade at God.
He would have fought and died, and it would have been glorious. It would have been so much fun to watch, but I mean, it's a new leaf for LGD. They're trying to turn it over and pull themselves together.
So we can hope.
Indeed we do. And now with Baron on the map, RNG starts setting up some vision on this side. Luckily, early wards and a Scuttle Crab from LGD keep them safe from any early cheesy play towards that side of the map from RNG. As Imp will continue to farm up. Runon's now finished for Y4. As Imp, he is down 30 CS right now.
I think this is the first time I've ever seen Imp at a CS deficit in his career. This guy, notorious for how well he picks up resources around the map.
Maybe things are a little bit different for LGD now, as Y4 is doing a great job. Even in the top lane, Let Me is nearly 60 CS ahead of Jinnu. And xiaohu might be looking for an assassination, but so too is Amy. He collapses onto Y4 as the rest of LGD turn now onto Ming. They're doing a lot of damage as that's a teleport from Cool to get in, but he's being bursted down. There's the collapse. The Demacia drops down the kill. Here's Let Me now locked into the Hextech ultimatum, but Jinnu is forced to depart as he's taking so much damage from Y4, who's free firing in the back. Finally, xiaohu joins the fight. Deathmark is not enough to get the kill, but Ace in the hole will follow through. Y4 has killed Imp. And in the chaos, it's a 2-for-1 favoring RNG.
And that looked like best case scenario for RNG, or excuse me, for LGD. How they started that fight, a beautiful engagement from Amy, but the gold differentials speak for themselves. At this point in the game, RNG's key champions are online, particularly in that Zed.
xiaohu showing up just in time to clean up that fight. He's going to have a lot of gold in his pockets now. And RNG, they take the mid tier 2, open up the map even more. Here's that fight again.
And again, beautiful engagement from Amy. Good job from Y4 to at least create space, so the initial target is going to be Ming, and it takes much longer to kill this Tom Kench than they would have liked. A questionable TP from Cool puts him in harm's way. He virtually does 0 damage before the fight really begins, and at this point you're like, okay, maybe LG are gonna, nope, they're not gonna turn this one around because Xiaohu got right into the backline. The Zed forces the Twitch out of the fight as well as Camille, and then there's this hilarious race where Jinu's like, I'm not saving you.
Yeah, exactly. But with that now, it's a 5,000 gold lead for RNG. They're 4 turrets to 0. They are now turning towards the Baron side of the map. PYL tries to get vision. Ming even clears out the blast cone preemptively. All 5 members of RNG are there. And LGD are just falling apart here.
Yeah, 0 response for them. I do like the hesitation from RNG not to immediately pull the trigger on Baron because they didn't know where Gragas was.
Yeah. They spot him now and immediately turn onto the pit. Luckily, a ward outside of it will spot this. There's another one over the wall. Amy has got his smite, but Imp and Cool on the side. They're playing it really close to the chest here.
What's the decision, boys?
They're taking a lot of damage from Baron. It's reducing a lot of their resistances. Amy's thinking about it. He's making his way around. Junu's ready with the ultimatum as well. And RNG decide to back away.
Plagued again by indecision. Luckily for them, they do grab the Scuttle Crab as an exit maneuver, but LGD effectively called their bluff. Force them out of the pit, as Xiaohu has to respond to the mid lane.
Now finishing off that Black Cleaver. Going to do even more. Even MLXG going for the full damage. Elise, I'd love to see if he continues with this. Just to round out the magic damage on his team, as we talked about a little bit in Champion Select. And
a big miss for LGD.
Oh yeah,
Hello?
MLXG, that is PYL dead.
Why are you there?
I don't even think he knows.
So here's my train of thought.
Yeah.
You know that RNG have reset on the map because they took so much damage from Baron. They want to heal spend their gold. So there's actually this big window where LGD could move into the Baron and clear out all of the control wards in the vision, which they know is there because they were fighting over the Baron. Instead, they kind of stagger their backs haphazardly and then overextend long enough in the lane for RNG side waves. Like, they didn't even clear out their side lanes. They literally did nothing with the tempo advantage that RNG had given them and lose everything.
Yeah. And with this RNG breakdown, yet another tier 2 turret. And with Baron still up on the map, that creates even more threat for LGD, as RNG of Spring Split was the most punishing team with Baron, the most likely team to take Baron and end the game within the duration in the entire LPL. So LGD now, with only those inhibitor turrets standing in a single tier 2, and now a second Mountain Dragon on RNG. Yes, they're scaling, but it is just becoming more and more dangerous for them.
It almost doesn't matter if they scale at this point because then they're still reliant on the 5v5. Their composition still doesn't have tools to stop a siege. And with 2 mountains and with full control over the Baron area, if that buff goes down, even if you give LGD all of their items, they still have to execute correctly on the 5v5 to make use of their strengths.
So then what do?
Cry.
Hunt for... Oh, okay. Well, I guess when you look at it that way.
I mean, the miracle can always happen. It's a Kassadin, it's a Twitch, it's Imp's Twitch of all things. You can never count it out, but this is RNG's game to lose. And the only caveat there is we said that in the finals across from Team WE, and they didn't go to MSI.
Yeah. How much has RNG learned? Perhaps maybe not taking their first day of the LPL as seriously as they should have. But now here on day 3, they are playing a very serious game as Amy looks to collapse onto MLXG. Ming is even there to escort his jungler to safety. And already Y4 is lending crits for 1,000 as he finished off his rapid fire cannon.
So you can already see the 1-3-1 taking effect. You've got the safety of Tom Kench there with Caitlyn while Zed and Jarvan prep the side waves. It's forcing LGD to respond, which pulls them out of this jungle, out of the Baron pit to clear out these wards and start setting up for this objective.
Teleport's ready for Let Me and Jinu. Question is, who's going to win the duel? Looks like it's not Jinu. He's chunked down to half and will actually take the wall ride to safety. And Jinu is still going because he's got the support of his team. That was a really painful flash. I like to imagine flash is not an instant displacement. It's actually just super fast dash, and he just face planted into the wall.
Well, you saw him facepalm on his camera there.
Yeah. Even Imp trying to look for a pick onto Xiaohu, he just shadows away along with the Youmu's. MLXG flanking from the far side is going to force them away. And with this, RNG, they've got a clear line for the inhibitor turret. Cool's hanging onto his teleport because he's split pushing top.
But this is not a base race or an objective race that they want to take. They wouldn't be able to trade the Baron in time without losing their inhib, and that was never going to be a worthwhile trade, Baron for bot inhib in particular.
Yeah, slow reaction from LGD again costs them another huge objective. This is the most valuable inhib to take on the map right now, and RNG are poised to break it down.
Possibly.
There's a teleport behind them. Jinu is going to try to flank, unless that's cool. No, he's in the middle of things, looking for Y4, trying to get the stun. Zanya's to stall it out, but he's on top of a trap. Jinu's over the wall. He gets the stun. He kills Y4, but it's too little too late. Amy and Cool are dead. Imp is kiting out as best he can, looking for entrance, but Jinu is buying so much time. Finally, Xiaohu drops Amy, but they turn onto Jinu. With that tank dead, it's up to the tag team, the longest standing duo in the LPL, to keep them safe.
No, they're just going to get bullied around. Unfortunately, Jinu wasn't able to take someone with him, so Imp's not confident enough to step forward. And there, finally, like you said, the most valuable inhib in the game falls.
That is a lot of pressure on the map for RNG, passively pushing minions to buy time for RNG to set up top and mid, and threaten that Baron even more so. And they do put up a great fight, but it's just not enough. Here's that flank again.
And again, it looked decent for LGD for a point there, but then RNG just overwhelmed them. A deep teleport flank from Jinu picks up the Caitlyn, but he's unable to convert it into one more member. Maybe if he had killed Zed there and Tomkinch hadn't gobbled him up, maybe Imp would have found confidence to step forward, especially because Cataclysm was also used, but without that last standing member, LGD just fall over to RNG.
Yeah. I feel like that's been a bit of the theme for this entire game. ... and LGD fall over to RNG. They're certainly trying, and they're putting up a great fight, looking for the late scaling, but they just don't have enough time. RNG are tearing them apart, and with yet another Mountain Dragon up in 2 minutes, and Baron already on the Rift, there is so much threat. LGD just cannot respond to everything that RNG are throwing at them.
And in particular, I really want to highlight and build up MLXG, because this game was a night and day performance from Series 1.
Oh, yeah.
You know, started off very aggressive, invades, rotating into multiple ganks, and even when the ganks aren't successful in terms of translating into kills, translating into pressure for his team.
I remember many a heated conversation during the spring split in which who's the best jungler? Is it Condi or MLXG? And with WE's victory, it seemed to finally have an answer to that question, but it seems like the question might be up again, as there's a cast onto Amy. He's knocked away from the fight. He takes a lot of damage. Cool tries to teleport flank, but is spotted by Letme, who bullies away a level 16 Kassadin 30 minutes into the game. Hops over the wall to join his team, but RNG, they've still got a lot of time to siege this tier 2.
There's also the bottom lane that's slowly going to be pushing in as the super creeps arrive. So LGD on a very short clock to make this play happen. They've used up their TPs and most of their goodwill. Yeah,
Jinu's in the back. He's dropped a ward. They're looking for Y4. They're looking for Xiaohu, but there's so much damage. You can't just pick off one. You've got to clean it all up. Y4 gets onto the turret, and despite the wave clear and the cask, it's slowly getting chipped away.
I mean, Amy's trying. He's made multiple engagements. Some of them have been good, some of them have been off, but at least there's an attempt there. But RNG are just so hard to crack, doing an excellent job covering their flanks, bunkering up, and waiting out the storm.
Now they've got super minions on the Nexus turret. Finally, LGD back away to respond, to defend, but they will lose that top tier 2. The Abyssal Voyage straight to Baron as LGD back away. They weren't even able to save that one, as they won't be able to save their chances against the Baron.
From bad to worse. I feel like this game's been over for the last 10 minutes, and unfortunately LGD just have to sit and just take it at this point.
We're just watching the actual end to the game.
That's a morale crusher, though.
And now Baron for RNG, 31.5 minutes in. There are only 2 inhibitor turrets standing and 1 Nexus turret left for LGD.
So how are you feeling about Y4?
How am I feeling?
Yeah.
It's good. 3-1-3. His positioning has been rather clean. He's getting some big headshots.
He laned across from Imp and PYL.
And he came up with a CS advantage in a favorable lane.
Yeah, that's the one asterisk there, is that the lane matchup certainly favors Y4. It was a very easy trip MLXG bought him a lot of pressure. Xiaohu bought him a lot of pressure. No one really impacted him, but again, he's one of those 80 carries where if you set up the dominoes and he's able to knock him down.
He's been in the right place at the right time, and I think the big difference for me is that he's not demanding resources. He's getting them and seeing success.
That's a fair way to put it.
Which could be a little bit different because we're seeing MLXG still come up big. We're seeing Let Me and Xiaohu with strong performances as well. And Y4, like you said, he's at the right place at the right time.
Doing his job.
Yeah.
Which, when you're on a roster with this much talent, that's really all you need to do. I mean, let Xiaohu make the flashy plays. Let me be the hyper carry Jarvan.
Oh man, I only wish you were going full lethality, full AD Jarvan.
No.
Nothing quite like
no one wants that.
Full penetration, murder mode, J4. Let me. Oh wow! He's actually getting burst quite a bit, despite being a bruiser. He goes low, and there goes the Hextech ultimatum. Jinnu tries to style around, but only ends up popping the GA of Xiaohu, who respawns and drops. So that's 2 quick deaths to RNG.
So finally, a mistake from RNG. They put 1 foot out of line, and LGD reminding them, hey, we're not dead yet. We're not just going to roll over and let you take this. So they didn't quite time how they were sieging up those objectives together, and another big breath of fresh air for LGD and their fans. The bottom inhib respawns, which means with RNG's Baron, they haven't been able to convert that into what they wanted.
I think we got a little ahead of ourselves in assessing Y4's performance just earlier, lauding RNG for being one of the most punishing, if not the most punishing teams with Baron in the league, and then they proceed to fall apart.
I mean, I was just ready for the pattern, the expectations.
Yeah.
We know that this team gets Baron and they just end the game.
Yeah, can't quite go on autopilot this time, as actually the team that's putting up the most fight against a Baroned up RNG is LGD. How do they do this? Where do they find this well of power?
LGD?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it's in their drafting because they do draft such late game. At some point, it's kind of... Have you faced Jax recently?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Terrible, terrible champion. That guy's literally 0 and 5, but at some point in the game, it doesn't matter. He's Jax. He's just going to jump and he's going to kill you. You're going to be like, I'm a 10 and 0 ADC, and you just run me down, and it doesn't matter. That's kind of LGD's composition.
LGD is Jax.
Yeah, at some point, they're just going to be powerful. But it's only through fighting, which means that RNG can work around that. They can use the fact that they have more control of the map. They can start pulling them around with the Baron. And they just made that slight mistake and got punished because, hey, it's still a late-game Camille. It's still a late-game Caso.
Which is a little bit of what we're seeing with the 1-3-1s that they've been trying over the past few minutes. Now, they're grouped back up in mid. They've still got Baron buff, so they could look for an inhibitor here. Before we just lost the scoreboard, I wanted to point out all of the control wards. Even Xiaohu has 2 control wards on his Zed. You don't see that very often, as Imp is waiting and looking for a flank, but the vision is just creeping further and further forward, denying LGD everything they possibly can. Amy's on the side.
Here's Johnny.
And that's a big cast. They managed to find MLXG. He goes up and comes right back down, saved by his support and brought back to the safe line.
I mean, Amy's like, what more do you want?
Yeah.
I keep starting these fights. I hit these nice belly bops, these good barrels, and nothing is happening.
LGD, though, do defend the inhibitor. It is still standing with a minion wave actually pushing top. Someone finally is pulled back to defend it. Elder Dragon is going to be the next one to spawn in just a few minutes, and Baron will be up shortly after.
And RNG are hesitating a little bit here. You know, they're giving LG more respect, you know, maybe a bit gun-shy after they got the bear trap closed on their hand last time when they went to overreach. But at the end of the day, they still have a very mobile composition.
Ooh, they managed to tag onto Cool, and he has got no chance to escape from this and just allows himself to die. Holds on to that flash. And luckily, there's no big neutral objective outside of his base to be taken.
That's head scratcher there for LGD.
Yeah, not quite sure what they were doing there. They were finally pushing back onto the map, seeing Xiaohu on the other side, but immediately RNG just punished them, collapse in, Y4 with a follow-up on the huge damage. They start to break down some inhibitors, and Cool's mistake is going to cost them quite a bit.
Possibly 2 inhibs. Amy will have his cast back up, so they're feeling confident with Imp still.
Yeah, he's sitting in the back. They're doing everything they can to protect that important hyper carry. Minions stream in. There's only a single inhib left. 20 seconds before Cool gets back up, and RNG can definitely finish off that inhibitor in time if LGD don't draw the line somewhere, or perhaps just let it go.
It's 12 seconds for Cassidy. He does have teleport. Could get pretty deep behind them, although he doesn't really have a TP location.
There's the cast to stall it out. Amy once again tries to set it up, but there's no follow through. Finally, Cool respawns. He immediately pings all my way. He's actually home guarding forwards, and that's a recall now started.
But a single mistake, a single pick of Cool overstepping, walking into unsafe fog of war, means that they lose all 3 inhibs with Elder and Baron about to spawn.
We did see RNG were just wanting to recall. They all started just outside of vision of a ward, and MLXG spotted it, and they all canceled the recall as LGD are chasing very far forward. Elder's up in 30 seconds, Baron 30 after.
And it's because they're trying to delay the backs for the Elder. It takes about 30 seconds to walk from the Nexus towards the Dragon Pit, and at this point in the game, either team can burn these monster objectives so quickly. So you can understand what LGD are thinking. They know that, again, very tiny window to actually make a play before 20 million creeps flood their gates.
As such, we're seeing here with Jinu clearing out a double super minion wave and more double super creeps, clearing down both mid and bottom. It's only a small amount of time for LGD to play with, and it seems like that clock has now run out. As Y4 clears out Scuttle Crab, Elder Dragon spawns. That is 225 true damage on each bonus auto attack. PYL rushes forward. Amy's trying to get in there, but he's got to make it over the trap line. It's not fast enough. Elder Dragon picked up, and Jinu's in the back, but there's nothing there to save him, nothing there to get him into his team. Imp flashes the wall. He's free-firing over the side. Jinu finally gets in. He's got the ultimatum ready, targeting Y4, but he gets away from Imp. Cool over the wall, looks for some follow-up, but Jinu goes down. The dive onto Imp as Xiao, who gets in and out. Cool drops to the headshot. Imp falls as well. The ace for RNG, a clean finish.
And we had questions, pound for pound, talent-wise. Would RNG, with this iteration of their roster, with this iteration of their performance, be able to stand up to the superstar talent on LGD? And the question is absolutely. Y4 did wonders across from Imp and PYL, and then MLXG returns to form on Elise and dominates that game.
It does create a very concerning scenario for RNG when they have a game like they, or I guess a best of 3 like they did during day number 1, and we begin to question and doubt. They've fallen down. Can they come back? And then they come right back here and show that, yes, as a matter of fact, they can. But if the bar is that high, is anything less than perfect acceptable for a team like this?
I mean, you know where my response is. I'm heavily critical. If a team doesn't win perfectly, I always want to find the errors or the holes that they can tighten up, because I'm always thinking international stage, especially for a team like RNG that represents almost every single time internationally. But this is already a massive improvement over what we saw the other day.
Yeah, and now joining us on the desk to help break down this game is Raz. Welcome back.
Hey, how's it going? How are you guys feeling after that, I guess, long-winded victory?
I think, Frost said it best. RNG seemed to have won the game at about 20 minutes, and we just watched them actually end it.
It was... See, remember the discussion we have about LGD, where it's like, oh, this is new LGD, they bring in Cool, more consistent mid laner, things should change. This feels like the exact same composition I would expect from LGD last split, where they go for Hail Mary fights, because if they don't get them, they lose every single lane.
I will 100% agree with that, but I will say that it was still, like, old LGD would have lost the game at 15 minutes. We bought 5 minutes, Raz.
Oh, see, this is what I...
he's like, please help me.
Maybe that's even more beneficial, because they should have forced a fight a little earlier on, because what ended up happening was they would lose bottom lane turret. That's almost like they couldn't do much about that. Then they go into the mid lane. They would lose mid lane turret. They were just 4K gold behind without really even having much of a leg to stand on. We can show it on the replay coming next, because it feels like the only play we were looking for was a team fight, anything from the side of LGD to come out ahead, to come out just from one pick. Now this starts really later on, but they find the pick that they needed. You can see the TP coming in from Cool. That's a bad one, because where he's positioned, where he's coming in from, he kind of forces a fight. They just wanted to pick and get out. It would be a longer pick because they were looking for the Tom Kench, and you have to get through the Grey Health entirely. But the moment that gets locked in, you have to back away. That is the only thing you can look for. I'm happy that they looked for the pick. It turns into a longer team fight, but you can see, how hard it is to even force this fight 21 minutes into the game, right? If it had been a little sooner, maybe they would have been in a 2K gold deficit, right? So immediately the first thing I should criticizes the pick ban because it is god-awful. It is disgusting of a pick ban.
Don't hold back. Tell us how you
There
really
is
feel.
no coach behind that team. That is... But then you move on. And if you move on to what was how they played that composition, how they played the composition was far too late because they basically sat on and did nothing up until the point where they finally engaged a fight when they were already incredibly far behind. And even in that execution, they committed to a longer fight, and they only needed that pick and get out.
See, hilariously, I feel like Raz and I have traded places, but only on LGD. Normally, I'm like the super hypercritical one, like, that was the right thing, but you just did it wrong.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm just like, Amy threw a barrel. I'm just happy that he found the R key, that the barrels are flying. Because old LGD just would have been like, what do we do? What's happening?
Yeah.
I mean, to continue on that vein a little bit more, we were seeing LGD go for these sort of small plays, try to look for a pick, try to look for that late fight. Even Jinu looking for the very, very deep teleports. They were making calls that you can look at it and say, you're right, this could be a Hail Mary, but you're also being rushed by 8 guys.
Yeah, you need to make those plays happen. It happened in the bottom side of the map when the TP play went through, and that got caught out because there's no way that fight will be doable. Right there, way too far behind. The only play where it was positive for LGD was a major mishap for RNG when they went topside and then lost 2 people based off the fact that they didn't have Caitlyn. They were still in the mid lane, and they just randomly died top, right? So I was like, RNG throwing the lead. Like, I feel like I've seen this in up against W.
This looks really familiar.
It's like
Shahu getting a little hyphy.
Yeah, so that happened, and it stalled out the game a long time, and I felt like that could have been a much faster game with how easy the pick ban process was for this team in RNG.
But again, this is still only week number 1 of the summer split, so they still have 9 more weeks to clean up the play. MVP goes to MLXG, 2-0-13, involved in not just 1, not just 2, but 100% of his team's kills.
I wouldn't give that to anyone else. I thought he had a phenomenal performance. I love to see that he found his confidence, he grabs the Elise, and he reminds everyone why he is the spicy hot pot.
I love every single time we call him spicy hot pot.
That's what they call it.
I know, I agree. I'm just saying it's hilarious.
You just love it.
Yep, love it. Because it was a pretty spicy game. And so this is, I'm just going to throw that out there. MLXG had a good game. It was very easy for him. It's one of those moments where it's like, I'm actually just getting disrespected by these picks. So it's wipe it all down, right? That's it. Go into the next game. Hopefully we see something better, smarter from LGD, that they can come out and start swinging.
Yeah.
Right? Because this probably was for them. They saw this as a buffer game. They can say that, yeah, we lost this game because of our picks that we usually go towards. The next game, we can definitely pull in 100% and play the meta picks.
So now we get a chance to readjust our expectations for the 2 teams, at least after this one game. RNG seems like they have not fallen asleep during the break. Maybe it was just an off day 2 days ago. Maybe MLXG just was feeling a little ill or something. Nobody really knows, but now they're back in form and they're able to pull it together. Whereas LGD, on the other hand, we have to look at them and say, okay, well, it is an improvement over Spring Split, but that gets you from bottom rung to 1 step above bottom rung, which is still very far from the top.
It's that question about where is the ceiling for this iteration of LGD? And also, where's the ceiling for this iteration of RNG with Y4 and with Let Me? We really haven't seen them reach their maximum capabilities.
Yeah, they've still got a lot of growth that they can show us. Hopefully we'll see more of it in game number 2. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll get that one ready for you.